What is going on, guys? Welcome back to Swish Life Garage. You guys see it here. I'm out with my 99 Civic. If you guys saw the last video, I did introduce this car to the channel. Here recently, I just started driving it as my daily, and I have noticed a few things wrong with it that I got to put some attention on. The first thing I want to take a look at is the lower ball joint here on this passenger side. Whenever I'm driving and hit a bump, that wheel just kind of feels like it does whatever it really wants to do. I'm going to put a block behind the rear wheel, get this passenger front side jacked up, take off the wheel, and see what's going on here. I just looked up at the upper control arm. You could tell it slid off of its bushings. They're completely torn. Also, I did hear some squeaking, so I thought it might have been the actually the lower control arm, but it looks like it is going to be that upper control arm. The other thing I did notice is whenever I make a U-turn that the tire rubs. I thought it was rubbing on some of the plastic or something, but it looks like it has been rubbing on here, and that is going to again be coming from the upper control arm since the geometry of the suspension is off. I do have some K-tuned upper control arms on my other Civic, so I am going to take those off. But firstly, I'm going to take this one off here. I have to get the 10 that's holding on the ABS wire, or the sensor wire right here. There's a 10 and then another 10 over here. Another 10 holding on the brake line. Going to get that loose, so whenever I take off this upper control arm, that knuckle is going to swing forward. You don't want these wires and these hoses to tear or anything to happen to them. Take off this cotter pin, and then we're going to take off the nut for that upper control arm. Should be a 17. See how everything is sliding, all this space. It should be in the middle. You can move it. To get to the other two bolts that are holding it in on each side, of course you got to open up the hood, got to get the air box out the way. You're going to find the bolt on the side there, and then if you take the battery out the way here, you'll have access to get to that bolt right there. Now I have access to the side bolt, and these are going to be a 14. The last bolt just holding up the control arm. And right there. This control arm is completely busted. Should not be able to take that out. You can see all the rubber where it tore. And this one as well. All torn up. I'm going to change out the upper control arms and then ride on it, see how it is. If it still has some of that shaking, then more than likely is going to be that lower ball joint. But I mean, obviously this has to get done first. I'm going to be taking off the driver's side as well. This upper control arm, this is how it should be, stiff. It's maybe slightly ripped, the bushing, but it's still a good upper control arm. You can see the bushings are still intact, and as I showed you, is holding firm when it was just up there by itself. The K-tuned upper control arms from my 2000 Civic, these are the spherical bushings. These are not the rubber ones. So basically they're just a bearing inside of there, so even when you tighten the bolts that mount up on the engine bay, instead of how that one was just holding firm and stiff, it's going to be able to move like that one, up and down. Not that super loose, but it's able to move without ever binding up the bushings, because of course it's bearing. Going to get a little bit more feedback in the steering wheel. It's going to be a little more stiff, but of course all the other bushings in the suspension right now are rubber, so it's not going to be too crazy of a difference. It's going to be a maybe 10% increase in stiffness. Right now I'm going to loosely put all the bolts. I'm not going to tighten anything down all the way just yet, but just reverse order of how I took these out. I'm going to be installing these. And I'm going old school with it today with the torque wrench since the other one is broken. On my last Civic that I put the control arms on, I torqued it down to 60 foot-pounds, and so I'm going to do the same for this. This other side I can't fit the torque wrench in there, so I just have to do it by hand. Last thing to torque down is the upper control arm ball joint, and this is torqued down to 29 to 35 foot-pounds. First go to 29, and if it lines up with the cotter pin, go ahead and close it on up. But if not, then tighten up a little bit more until you're able to line up with the hole. Did already throw in the air box and the battery, so last thing to do is put on the wheels, torque them on down, and take it down from the jack stand. Still feel a little looseness in the front suspension. I believe the rest of that is going to be coming from the lower ball joints like I previously mentioned. I do feel some looseness more than anything in the rear. I have to check that on out, but definitely just changing out the upper control arms cured about 80% of what I was feeling. So I'm going to be taking off the rear wheels and see what's going on back here. Pretty much all the bushings are kind of blown in here. But the two main bad ones is going to be this trailing arm bushing. You can see it has some cracks in there. It's kind of broken up over here, so it gives some movement. And then the other one that I think giving me a lot of movement is going to be this camber arm. This is basically like your upper control arm, but for the rear suspension. And here on the driver's side, because even this one is all torn up, you see how much twisting it's doing. Next thing I want to take a look at is whenever the car is idling, I'm just at a stoplight or whatever with the windows down, I kind of hear like a bearing noise. I do believe that's going to be coming from the idler pulley from the AC belt, and whenever I turn on the AC, the compressor doesn't sound all too good. I'm going to try to get on camera how the compressor or the idler sounds. Start up the car, turn on the AC, hopefully you'll hear it. I tried to turn off the AC to see if you guys could hear the idler pulley, and I'm pretty sure you can't hear over all the other engine noise. But basically what it sounds like is maybe someone in the back, on the back end, is on a machine, on a lathe. It's just very faint, but that's what it sounds like to me. So I'm going to be taking off the belts. I'm going to take off the belt for the power steering, and then I'll have access to get to the belt for the AC. Here's the 14 that holds on the idler pulley, and there's a washer in front of it. Gotta make sure I don't drop that. Here's the idler pulley. Honestly, doesn't look too old. It's not making any noise, honestly. I got under here, looked at the alternator. It's missing its nut. They put a zip tie. So I definitely need to replace that with the correct nut. And I tried spinning the compressor. It makes maybe a slight noise, but you could kind of hear the noise now. I think that's where the noise is going to be coming from though. And here is the correct nut it should have. I did loosen up the 12 over here for the bracket for the alternator. So now the alternator is free to move. I'm going to tighten up this alternator. I'm going to put some pressure up on it, make sure it's extended all the way so I don't get any sort of squeaking or squealing whenever I turn on the car. It's just tightened up with the 12 up on top and then the 14 nut that I replaced down there. Started up the car a few times just to make sure the alternator doesn't have a squeal. I don't want to put the other belts on and then have to get back to that belt. So now I'm going to move on to the AC belt. But the next thing I want to do onto here is give this car its first oil change. Up on the windshield, it does have a sticker on there. It said the next oil change should have been at 224,000 miles, and right now I'm at 226,000 miles. I'm not sure at what mileage the last oil change was, but again, I picked this car up at 222,000. Definitely overdue for an oil change. I'm going to slightly get this thing jacked on up. I'm going to be putting in the Pennzoil 50830. It has been a few hundred miles since I've used the car, and I have heard the AC compressors still make a noise. It's not exactly the same noise as before, but to me it's more of like a rumbling. I'll start the car right now, turn on the AC, and then turn it off so you guys could kind of hear it. Hopefully it comes out on camera. I'm pretty sure you're able to hear that on camera, and it's making that noise even louder because the engine has just been chilling for a couple hours. But the more that you leave the AC on, that noise gets quieter and quieter. Either way, I'm gonna get to that, but just thought I'll just speak on it a little bit more and show you guys what's happening here. Last thing I'm gonna do for this video is just change out this air box. Whenever I took out the air box to change the upper control arm, I did see it was kind of broken over here, and so I do have the other air box from my other sedan. I'm gonna take this one on out with the 210s that hold it on in, and then get the other one from the car, clean it on up. I noticed that the resonator box is barely holding in there, so I'm going to be deleting that and then deleting this bracket here. Here on the passenger side, if I pull back the fender liner is already pretty much kind of torn up here, but I'm able to get in there and I see the bolt that's holding in the resonator right there, so it's only being held in by one bolt. I'm going to easily just drop that on down. Jesus, look at this, dude. Why did they even throw it back in? Here's the parts I took off. Of course, the resonator box. I think they probably like hit a curb or something and just broke it. You can see, yeah, more than likely they just hit a curb or something in the road, hit it. And the bumper as well, it does have like a tear in it or a crack, but this is going to be trash. I did cut the fender liner since it was all pretty much messed up. They just had some zip ties holding the rest of this piece. Here's that bracket I was telling you guys about that holds the air box. Don't really need it, it just has this rubber piece, but this as well helps the resonator hold into place. With these bolts I took off, see they have a big washer on there. That's the bolts I was telling you that should be used. Here's the ones that was holding on to the air box, so I'll be able to use these to hold the airbox. See how it has some damage on there? I was just wanting to change it on out just to have a clean one. It is missing one of its little clips or the snaps that hold it on in. And then this is just the air filter. Another slight bit of damage here where that rubber grommet holds the airbox down. You can see it's broken right there. It's not really nothing. Here's the airbox that came off of the other sedan. This one is not broken anywhere, but it does have a little fading on here right where it would meet up with the fender and the hood. I do have a brand new air filter in there, so I'm going to be cleaning this one on up right now. all cleaned up. I do have the air filter in there, but looks pretty good. Just simply install it right on in. Do have the correct bolts on in there, and it does move a little bit, but I'm not really worried about it. If you're worried about this type of shaking, then just go ahead and leave the bracket in. But for the most part, I mean, no reason why your engine is shaking that much. It's going to be it for this video, and just touching up on some of these things on this car, checking on those belts, changing the oil, fixing the airbox, upper control arms, and checking on the rear suspension. And I do have a lot of parts saved up for it, but of course everything takes time. So make sure you guys are subscribed. I try to document everything that I do onto my personal vehicles, and just try to let you guys in on some knowledge or just some insight if you're doing the same job as well. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. Hopefully you guys like this video. Give this video a thumbs on up. But this is going to be it for this video, guys. Check out some of the other videos, because I'm going to catch you on the next one, player.